Dr. Zephy had 4 arms and blue skin that changed color when he was worried. Right now, his skin was turning a deep purple as he looked around the medical tent on planet Kepler 442b. The war had been going on for 3 years and he had seen many strange things. But nothing prepared him for the humans. The tent was big and white, filled with beds and medical machines that beeped and hummed. Outside, he could hear the sound of laser guns and explosions. The Vortak Empire was trying to take over this planet, and a group of different alien species was fighting to stop them. This group was called the Coalition Forces. Zephy was the head doctor for the Coalition. He had treated soldiers from many different planets. There were the tall, thin Altarians who had green blood. There were the rock-like granite people who were very hard to hurt but took forever to heal. There were the flying sky folk who had hollow bones like birds. And then there were the humans. The humans had joined the war only 6 months ago. When they first arrived, the other alien species laughed at them. Humans looked weak and small. They had no natural armor, no claws, no poison, and no special powers. Their skin was soft and easily cut. They could only see a few colors and they could not even fly. "Why did we accept them into the coalition?" asked Velti, Zephy's assistant. Velti was young and had the same blue skin, but with only 2 arms. "The High Command says they are brave," Zephy replied. "But I think they are just foolish." That morning, 3 human soldiers came into the medical tent. The first was a man named Gene Park. He was tall for a human with black hair and dark eyes. The second was a woman named Sue Kim. She was smaller but had a strong look in her eyes. The third was a man named Min Lee who looked very young. All 3 had been hurt in the battle yesterday. Gene had a deep cut on his arm from a Vortak sword. Sue had burn marks on her back from a plasma gun. Min had a piece of metal stuck in his leg. "Lie down on the beds," Zephy told them. "We will start treatment." In the coalition medical system, soldiers who got hurt had to rest for many days. The doctor would give them medicine to make them sleep, then use special machines to heal their bodies. Most aliens needed at least 1 week to get better from serious wounds. But the humans were different. "Doctor, how long will this take?" Gene asked as Zephy cleaned his wound. 7 days minimum. Maybe 10 if the cut is deep. Gene sat up quickly. 10 days? My team needs me now. "You cannot fight with this injury," Zephy said, pushing Gene back down. "If you move too much, the wound will open again." Sue was on the bed next to Gene. The burn on her back was red and painful looking. "Doc, can you just patch me up quick? We have a mission tomorrow." Zephy's skin turned more purple. "Patch you up? This is serious damage to your tissue. You need full healing treatment." "What if we promise to be careful?" Min asked. The metal in his leg had been removed, but the hole was still bleeding. "Careful?" Zephy could not believe what he was hearing. "You cannot be careful with wounds like these. You must rest and heal." The 3 humans looked at each other. Gene spoke first. "Doctor, how many coalition soldiers died yesterday?" Zephy checked his data pad. 43 confirmed dead. 62 missing. "And how many humans?" 12 dead, 8 missing. Sue sat up despite her burns. "So we lost 20 people out of our unit of 200. That means 180 humans are still out there, probably hurt and definitely outnumbered." "The other species will help them," Zephy said. Min shook his head. "The Altarians are good at long-distance fighting, but they are not strong up close. The granite people are tough but slow. The sky folk cannot fight on the ground very well." "What is your point?" Zephy asked. Gene tried to stand up again. "Our point is that our friends need us. We cannot lie in bed for a week while they fight and die." This was very strange to Zephy. In his culture and in most alien cultures, when someone got hurt, they focused only on getting better. The idea of going back to danger while still injured was crazy. "But you might die if you fight while hurt," Zephy said. "We might die if we do not fight," Sue replied. Over the next few hours, Zephy watched the human soldiers carefully. They were not like other patients. Most aliens would lie still and let the healing machines work. They would sleep and rest and wait to get better. But the humans were restless. They kept asking about the battle outside. They wanted to know how their friends were doing. They kept trying to get up and walk around even though it hurt them. "This is not normal behavior," Velti whispered to Zephy. "No, it is not," Zephy agreed. "But maybe that is what makes them human." As the day went on, more human soldiers were brought in. All of them asked the same questions. How long until they could fight again? How were their units doing? Could they please go back to help their friends? Zephy had never seen anything like it. These soft, weak creatures seemed to care more about others than themselves. It was fascinating and frightening at the same time. That evening, as HFY finished his rounds, he wondered what tomorrow would bring. He had a feeling that the humans would surprise him again. He had no idea how right he was. The ground shook under HFY's feet. It was still dark outside, but the sounds of fighting were getting closer. Red lights flashed in the medical tent, and a loud alarm started beeping. Emergency! Emergency! All units to battle stations. A voice called out over the speakers. HFY ran to his communication device. This is Medical Unit 7. What is happening? The Vortak have broken through our front line, came the reply. They are pushing toward the main base. Heavy casualties coming in. Within minutes, the medical tent was full of hurt soldiers. The beds filled up quickly. Altarians with green blood leaking from their wounds. Granite people with cracks in their rock-hard skin. Skyfolk with broken wings. And humans. So many humans. Doctor. We need help here. Velti called out. A human woman named Bohan was carried in by 2 other soldiers. Her left arm was badly burned by a plasma weapon. The burn was so deep that HFY could see the bone underneath. Put her on bed 12, HFY ordered. Start the healing process immediately. But as soon as the soldiers put Bo down, she tried to sit up. Wait, she said. How bad is it out there? The soldier who brought her in shook his head. Bad. The Vortak caught us sleeping. They have new weapons we have never seen before. How many made it back? Bo asked. Maybe half. Bo's face went white, but not from pain. Ah. That means Ji and Wu are still out there. Bo, you cannot worry about that now, HFY said as he prepared the medicine to make her sleep. You need treatment. No. Bo pushed his hand away. Give me something for the pain, but do not make me sleep. HFY was confused. The treatment requires you to be unconscious. The machines cannot work if you move around. Then find another way. This was impossible. All medical treatment in the coalition worked the same way. The patient would sleep, and machines would slowly heal their body over many days. On the other beds, the other aliens were lying still. Even though they were hurt and scared, they understood that rest was the only way to get better. Some granite people were already falling into their healing sleep. The Altarians were calm and quiet, trusting the doctors to take care of them. But every single human was awake and asking questions. Doctor, can I have a communication device? Asked Teo, a human man with a deep cut across his chest. I need to contact my unit. You need to rest, HFY told him. My team does not know if I am alive or dead. They will do something stupid to try to rescue me. Another explosion shook the tent. This one was much closer than before. The lights went out for a few seconds, and when they came back on, several aliens were crying with fear. But the humans looked different. Instead of being more scared, they looked more determined. The Vortak are getting closer, said High Park, a human woman with burns on her legs. We should be out there helping. You should be getting medical treatment, HFY said firmly. Look around, doctor, Hai said. How many beds do you have? 50? How many wounded are coming in? 100? 200? HFY looked around the tent. She was right. They were running out of space. More hurt soldiers were being brought in every few minutes. If some of us go back to fight, Hai continued, maybe fewer soldiers will get hurt. This logic made no sense to HFY. If you go back while injured, you will get hurt worse. Maybe die. If we stay here, our friends will definitely die. The sound of fighting was getting much louder now. Through the tent walls, HFY could see bright flashes of light from weapons. The smell of smoke was getting stronger. Medical unit, this is command, a voice said over the radio. How many soldiers can you send back to the fight? HFY answered quickly. None. All our patients need healing time. We need every soldier we can get. The Vortak are almost at the main base. HFY looked at his patients. The aliens were all lying still, following medical orders. Their wounds were serious and they would need many days to heal. But the humans were different. Jean, Sue, and Min from yesterday were sitting up in their beds, testing their movements. Bo was trying to bend her burned arm. Tay was checking if his chest wound would hold together if he moved. Doctor, Jean called out. What happens if the Vortak reach this medical tent? HFY's skin turned darker blue. We will evacuate the patients. All of them? Sue asked. Even the ones who cannot walk? We will do our best. What about the medical equipment? Min added. Can you carry all the machines that keep people alive? HFY realized what they were thinking. If the medical tent had to be evacuated quickly, some patients might not make it. The heavy healing machines could not be moved fast enough. Another explosion. This time, Pieces of dirt fell from the tent ceiling. "Doctor," Bo said quietly, "I think it is time to consider other options." "What other options?" The humans looked at each other. Jean spoke for all of them. "Maybe there is a faster way to treat wounds. Something that does not require days of rest." HFY felt a chill in his forearms. He did not like where this conversation was going. "There is no faster way. Healing takes time." "For your people maybe," Sue said. "But we are not your people." Outside, the fighting sounds were getting closer and closer. The medical supplies were running out fast. HFY watched as his assistant Velti counted what they had left. "Healing gel for maybe 20 more patients. Pain medicine for 30. The big healing machines are working, but we have no backup power if they fail," Velti reported. Another explosion shook the tent. This time, some of the medical equipment fell over. A few lights went out and did not come back on. "Medical unit, this is command," the radio crackled. "The front line is completely broken. Vortac forces will reach you in 2 hours. Maybe less." HFY felt his skin turning the darkest blue he had ever seen. In 2 hours they would have to move everyone. But many patients could not be moved safely. He looked at the humans in their beds. They were all awake, watching everything with sharp eyes. The other aliens were scared and confused, but the humans looked like they were thinking hard about something. Bohan stood up from her bed. Her burned arm was wrapped in white bandages, but she could barely move it. "Doctor, may I see your medical tools?" she asked. "Why?" "I want to understand how they work." HFY did not like this, but Bo was walking toward his tool table anyway. She picked up a small plasma cutter that was used to remove damaged tissue. "This makes heat, right?" she asked. "Yes, very hot. It cuts away dead skin so new skin can grow." Bo nodded and looked at her bandaged arm. "And heat can stop bleeding?" "In some cases, yes. But the healing process is much more complex than just—" Bo unwrapped her bandage. The burn underneath was red and deep. It should have been treated with healing gel and months of rest. Instead, Bo turned on the plasma cutter. "What are you doing?" HFY shouted. "What needs to be done," Bo said. Then she pressed the hot plasma cutter against her wound. The smell of burning flesh filled the air immediately. Bo's face went white and she bit down hard on her lip, but she did not stop. She moved the plasma cutter slowly along the edge of her burn, sealing the wound closed with heat. HFY screamed. "Stop. You are hurting yourself." But Bo did not stop. She finished sealing one side of the burn, then started on the other side. Her whole body was shaking and sweat was running down her face, but her hands stayed steady. When she was done, she turned off the plasma cutter and set it down. The wound was sealed shut, black and smoking but no longer bleeding. "There," she said, breathing hard. "Now it will not get infected and I can use my arm." HFY could not speak. In all his years as a doctor, he had never seen any living thing deliberately cause itself pain. It was impossible. Every creature in the universe was programmed to avoid pain and protect itself. But then Gene Park sat up in his bed. "Bo, that was smart. Can I try?" "No." HFY found his voice. "This is madness. You cannot." Gene was already getting up. He had a deep sword cut on his leg that was still bleeding through his bandages. He limped over to the tool table and picked up a medical laser. "Gene, do not do this." HFY begged. "Doc, with respect, you have your way of healing and we have ours," Gene said. He unwrapped his bandage and looked at the cut. "This is not as bad as some things I have seen." Gene turned on the medical laser. The beam was thin and very hot, designed to cut away infected tissue. Instead, Gene used it to burn his wound closed just like Bo had done. The other aliens in the medical tent were making horrified noises. A few Altarians fainted. One of the granite people was making a deep rumbling sound that meant he was very upset. But the humans were watching Gene with interest, not horror. "Does it work?" asked High Park. Gene tested his leg. The wound was sealed shut and though it looked terrible, it was not bleeding anymore. "I can walk on it. I can run if I need to." "My turn," said Teo. His chest wound was the deepest of all, but he picked up a surgical heating tool. "Stop. All of you stop." HFY was running around the tent, his forearms waving frantically. "This is not medical treatment. This is self-harm. No intelligent creature does this." But Tae was already burning his wound closed. Then Soo Kim started working on her back burns. Then Min Lee picked up another tool for his leg wound. One by one, every human in the medical tent began sealing their own wounds with heat. The sounds they made were terrible. Little gasps and groans of pain. But none of them screamed. None of them stopped. They helped each other reach wounds they could not see, holding tools steady when hands shook from pain. "This is impossible," Velti whispered. "How can they do this to themselves?" "I do not know," HFY replied. His voice was shaking. When the last human finished, they all stood up and began testing their movements. Their wounds were sealed but rough-looking, like black lines drawn across their skin. It was not pretty, but it worked. Bo flexed her burned arm. It clearly hurt, but she could move it. "Doctor, do you have any pain medicine we can take with us?" "Take with you? Where are you going?" Jean checked his sealed leg wound. "Back to the fight, of course." "You cannot fight like this. Your wounds are barely closed." "They are closed enough," Sue said. "And our friends are still out there." The humans began gathering their weapons and equipment. They moved carefully, but they moved. "This is not healing," HFY cried. "This is just stopping the bleeding." "Sometimes," Min said as he picked up his rifle, "that is all you need." They walked toward the tent exit, leaving the alien medical staff staring in complete shock. "Thank you for the tools, Doctor," Bo called back. "We will try not to need them again." Then they were gone, disappeared into the smoke and noise of the battle outside. HFY stood in his medical tent, surrounded by the smell of burned flesh and the sound of his alien patients whimpering in fear. He had just watched 23 humans deliberately burn themselves and walk away. He was not sure if he had witnessed the bravest thing he had ever seen, or the most insane. After the humans left, the medical tent was very quiet. The only sounds were the beeping machines and the soft crying of some Altarian soldiers. HFY stood in the same spot where he had watched the humans burn themselves. His forearms were still shaking. His skin had turned the darkest purple color that his species could make. "Doctor," Velti whispered. "What just happened?" HFY did not answer. He could not answer. In his mind, he kept seeing the same thing over and over. Bohan pressing the hot plasma cutter against her own flesh. The smell. The smoke. Her face twisted with pain, but her hands staying steady. "Doctor?" Velti asked again. I do not know," HFY finally said. Around the tent, the other alien patients were talking in scared voices. "Did you see what they did?" an Altarian soldier asked. "They hurt themselves on purpose." "It is not possible," replied a granite person. "No living thing causes pain to itself." "But we all saw it," said a skyfolk with a broken wing. "They used medical tools to burn their own bodies." HFY walked slowly to his communication device. His hands were shaking so much that it took 3 tries to make the connection. "This is Medical Unit 7 calling Human Command," he said. "Human Command here. This is Commander Jean Wu Choi. Commander, I need to report something very serious. Your soldiers they have damaged themselves." There was a pause. "Can you be more specific, Doctor?" "They took medical tools and burned their wounds closed. Then they left to return to the fighting." Another pause, longer this time. "They cauterized their wounds?" That is actually pretty smart thinking." HFY felt like his world was turning upside down. "Smart? You think this is smart?" "Doctor, field medicine is not always pretty. Sometimes you have to make quick fixes to keep going." "Quick fixes." HFY's voice was getting higher. "They caused themselves terrible pain. They burned their own flesh." "Yes, that does sound painful," Commander Choi agreed. "But if it stops the bleeding and lets them keep fighting, then it was the right choice." The right choice. HFY could not believe what he was hearing. "Commander, do you understand what I am telling you? Your soldiers deliberately hurt themselves." "I understand perfectly, Doctor. And I am proud of them." "Proud?" The word hit HFY like a physical blow. "How can you be proud of self-harm?" Commander Choi's voice became serious. "Doctor, let me ask you something. In your culture, what is the worst thing a person can do? Hurt themselves or others unnecessarily. In human culture, the worst thing you can do is abandon your friends when they need you." HFY sat down heavily in his chair. "But the pain? Pain is temporary. Losing your friends is forever." After the communication ended, HFY sat alone for a long time. Around him, his medical staff were trying to treat the remaining patients, but everyone kept looking at the tools the humans had used. "Doctor," Velti said quietly, "should we hide the plasma cutters? In case other humans come in?" Yes. Put them away." But as Velti gathered the tools, HFY thought about Commander Choi's words. "Pain is temporary. Losing your friends is forever." "Velti," he called out. "In your family, what would you do if your brother was in danger?" "I would call for help. Get the authorities. Follow proper procedures." "What if there was no time for proper procedures?" Velti looked confused. There is always time to do things correctly. That is why we have procedures. That was the difference, HFY realized. For his people and for most alien species, there was always a correct way to do things. If someone was hurt, you treated them properly with the right medicine in the right amount of time. If someone was in danger, you followed the proper steps to get help. But humans seemed to make up new rules when the old rules did not work. "Doctor," said Kira, one of the Altarian soldiers. "I have been thinking about what the humans did." "Yes. In our species we have what you call pain blocks in our minds. If something hurts too much, our brain makes us stop doing it automatically. We cannot choose to continue." HFY nodded. This was true for Centaurians too and most other species. But what if humans do not have these pain blocks? Kira continued. What if their brains are different? It was a frightening thought. Pain was the most basic warning system in nature. It told creatures when they were being damaged, when to run away, when to stop doing something dangerous. If humans can ignore pain, Velti said slowly, then they can do things that no other species can do. Terrible things, added the granite person. Or incredibly brave things, Kira said quietly. The tent fell silent again as everyone thought about this. Later that evening, HFY was updating his medical records when he heard explosions in the distance. But these sounded different. Not the incoming fire they had been hearing all day, but outgoing fire. Coalition weapons firing at the enemy. His communication device buzzed. Medical Unit 7, this is forward base. The human soldiers who left your tent have retaken Hill 347. They are pushing the Vortak back. How many casualties? HFY asked. None from the human unit. They are fighting like they are not even hurt. After the communication ended, HFY stared at his medical equipment. Everything he knew about healing said that those humans should be lying in bed for weeks. Everything he knew about biology said that creatures could not function with wounds like theirs. But everything he was seeing with his own eyes said that humans were different. Maybe they were broken in some way. Maybe their minds did not work correctly. Or maybe they worked in a way that was beyond his understanding. Either way, he was starting to realize that treating human soldiers was going to require completely new medical procedures. The thought both terrified and fascinated him. The battle continued through the night, but something had changed. The explosions were moving away from the medical tent instead of getting closer. The red emergency lights stopped flashing, and the scared voices on the radio became more hopeful. Medical Unit 7, this is command. The radio crackled at dawn. Vortak forces are retreating. The humans have pushed them back past the northern ridge. HFY looked up from treating an Altarian pilot. The humans did this? Affirmative. The 23 soldiers who left your medical tent have been fighting non-stop for 14 hours. They have not requested relief or medical assistance. 14 hours. HFY calculated quickly in his head. Those humans should have collapsed from blood loss hours ago. Their crude wound sealing should have failed. They should be unconscious or dead. Are they still functional? He asked. More than functional. They are leading the counterattack. Through the morning, reports kept coming in. The humans with the burned wounds were not just fighting, they were winning. Hill 347 had been retaken. The Vortak supply line was cut. Enemy forces were pulling back on 3 different fronts. How is this possible? Belty asked. HFY shook his head. It should not be possible. Around noon, wounded soldiers began returning to the medical tent. But not human soldiers. Altarians, granite people, and skyfolk were carried in by their comrades. They all told the same story. The humans would not quit, said an Altarian sergeant named Cole. I saw one of them, the woman with the burned arm. She was bleeding through her bandages, but she kept fighting. She saved my whole squad. A granite person with cracks in his stone skin added, the human called Te-O climbed up a cliff to take out a Vortak gun position. His chest wound opened up again, but he did not stop. He just pressed his hand against it and kept going. I saw Min Lee carry 3 wounded skyfolk to safety, reported a pilot. He was limping badly, but he made 4 trips back into the danger zone. Every story was the same. The humans fighting beyond what should be physically possible. Ignoring pain that would stop any other species. Continuing when logic said they should give up. In the afternoon, HFY was called to the communication center. Doctor, this is General Vextar, Coalition High Command, said a deep voice. I need to understand something about human medical treatment. Yes, General? My reports say that human soldiers left your medical facility with serious wounds and have been fighting for 18 hours straight. Is this normal human behavior? HFY thought about his answer carefully. General, I am beginning to think that nothing about humans is normal by our standards. Explain. They appear to be able to function with injuries that would disable any other species. They can ignore pain levels that would cause most creatures to lose consciousness. And they seem to prioritize group survival over individual safety in ways I have never seen. Are they physically stronger than we thought? No, General. If anything, they are more fragile than most species. But they are mentally different. Different how? HFY chose his words carefully. They seem to be able to override their biological programming when they believe it is necessary. There was a long silence. That is either very impressive or very dangerous. Perhaps both, General. Late in the day, the first human soldiers finally returned to the medical tent. But they did not come as patients. They came to check on the other wounded soldiers. Bohan walked in first, her burned arm now wrapped in dirty cloth. The sealed wound was still holding, but it looked terrible, black and rough like tree bark. Doctor, she said to HFY. How are the others doing? They are healing properly, HFY replied. But you should be in bed. Your wound needs real treatment. After we win the war, Bo said. Right now we just need it to not fall apart. Gene Park limped in behind her. His leg wound had reopened slightly, and there was fresh blood on his bandages. Gene, you are bleeding again, HFY pointed out. I know. I will fix it tonight. Gene looked around the tent. Any word on casualties from other units? Lower than expected, Velti answered. The quick advance caught the Vortak off guard. The humans nodded and began to leave. Wait, HFY called out. At least let me give you fresh bandages. They stopped and allowed him to change their dressings. As he worked, HFY studied their wounds up close. The cauterization had worked, but it was rough and ugly. It would leave permanent scars. In some cases, it had damaged healthy tissue around the wounds. By any medical standard, it was terrible treatment. But it had worked. Doctor, Bo said as he finished her bandage. I know what we did shocked you. Yes, it did. In human culture we have a saying, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Sometimes you cannot wait for the perfect solution. After they left, HFY sat down at his computer and opened his medical protocols file. For several hours he wrote and rewrote a new section. Human Medical Protocol Update. Human soldiers have demonstrated the ability to function with improperly healed wounds for extended periods. While their field treatment methods appear crude and dangerous by standard medical practices, they have proven effective in emergency situations. Recommend allowing human personnel to make their own decisions regarding return to duty timelines. He paused, then added, Note, human pain tolerance and decision-making processes operate outside normal biological parameters. This species may represent a unique evolutionary approach to survival, prioritizing group success over individual safety through conscious override of self-preservation instincts. He saved the file and leaned back in his chair. HFY still did not understand humans completely. Their willingness to hurt themselves still horrified him. But he could no longer deny the results. Maybe being willing to do terrible things to yourself was not insanity. Maybe it was a different kind of courage.